Hey, welcome to Russ Can Fly. So you want to become a pilot? That is awesome. I got 4 suggestions to help you get started. Let's go.
Oh my goodness, Russ can fly.
Okay, so as you can see, my hangar is empty, and at the time of filming this video, Charlie is in annual. And for my non-pilot peeps, annual inspection is something that you have to do for the airplane every year. They basically take the airplane apart, you know, visually inspect some things, change the oil, all that kind of stuff. And so it is my turn. She's gonna need new tires and all that kind of stuff. So that's why the hangar is empty. And as you can see, once I'm done filming this video, I need to blow these leaves out and all that kind of stuff. But at any rate, let's get to it. You wanna become a pilot, but you don't know how to get started. Here are 4 things that I'm going to suggest to get you started right away. Number 1, get it in your head that you are going to become a pilot. One of the things that I discovered when I first got interested in this is that me, from a psychological point, couldn't make the leap from I am just interested in becoming a pilot to I want to be a pilot to actively engaging in the process of becoming a student pilot out of flight school. Now, I understand that psychological barrier because it really feels like a pipe dream, right? I am gonna be a pilot. I'm gonna actually fly airplanes. And as you're sitting there watching this video, you may be thinking to yourself, Russ, I mean, I know it sounds great for you because you've already done it, but me, I just can't see myself, you know, I can't see a clear path for me sitting on the couch watching this video on my TV or walking around in the supermarket on my phone or wherever you're watching this video and really making it real in your mind that you are going to be a pilot. Well, here's what I got to say about that. Make it clear in your mind that you, ma'am, you, sir, are going to be a pilot. Yeah, now I know it may seem big and it may seem dreamlike, and becoming a pilot is awesome. And here's the thing. Clearly, it's like 1% of the population are pilots or something like that. And I'm not talking about just commercial pilots. I'm talking about pilots in general. Or is it 10%? I forget. It's a small percentage. And so the idea, especially if aviation is not in your family or you don't know anybody who was an aviator, like myself. Nobody in my family was a pilot or was in aviation in any way. And although many of my people in my family served in the military, my dad, my uncle, and all those folks, Army, Marines, respectively, they weren't part of aviation. They were part of like combat troops and stuff like that. And so the idea of me becoming an actual pilot really didn't seem real. That is until I made it real. Until I said to myself, no, I really want to do this. I have that interest. Every time an airplane flies over my head, I am looking up in the sky, and you know, every time I go to an airport, I'm standing on that side of the fence, looking at the other side of the fence, watching people walk towards airplanes and get out and all of that kind of stuff. And I can never forget the one time I was here at Doylestown and I was behind the fence again, and I saw this man who looked to be about my age or maybe a little younger. And he got out of the airplane and he and his son made a beeline to the FBO because they both had to go to the bathroom really bad. But then once they did what they had to do, they walked back to the airplane. And I just remember that interaction between the two of them. And it was just like, I've got to do that. And so you may be thinking, well, you know, I didn't do well in school, or I'm not good at math or physics or all of that kind of stuff. And yes, all of those things are involved. But I gotta tell you, it's normal people who are sitting in the cockpit of those big Boeing, whatever, 787s and all that kind of stuff. The only difference between those normal people and you, normal person, is that they just made up in their mind that that's what they were going to do. And so that's the first thing you need to do. You just need to make it up in your mind that you are going to become a pilot. And yes, I know that there's financial barriers and all that kind of stuff. And aviation does not make any financial sense at all, especially owning an airplane. I can tell you that for sure. But there are so many things in life that are, you know, financially challenging. Buying a house, buying a car. My gosh, cars now are ridiculous. But the most important thing is getting over the psychological barrier. Yes, you can make this happen. And I gotta tell you, if you're always on YouTube and your go-to videos of choice are aviation videos, you're supposed to be a pilot. And so don't think that this is above you, that this is above your pay grade or any of that kind of stuff. You are supposed to be a pilot. So say to yourself, okay, I have a love for aviation. I've always wanted to be a pilot. I am going to be a pilot. Full stop. Once you get over that psychological barrier, then here comes number 2. Now, the reason why number 1 is so important is because number 2, the next thing you need to do is Google all of the flight schools around you. Now, let's say there are 2 or 3. I want you to go to every flight school in your area. And now, because number 1 is so important, the reason why I want you to make it up in your mind that you are going to be a pilot is because number 2, once you start visiting these flight schools, I do not want you to be intimidated. Now, here's the thing. When you go into the flight school, you need to feel confident to go up and start talking to people in that flight school. Now, here's the thing. If you were going anywhere else, like let's say you were going to a car dealership, right? And you were going to buy a car. The first thing you would have done is you would have done your research on make, model, engine, color, all of that kind of stuff. That's why I'm telling you to Google the flight schools, get on their websites, see where they are, see who the chief pilot is, understand like what their training philosophy it is, and then understand what is their airplane rental rates. Are they wet rates or dry rates? And you need to know what that means. And I won't get into that here, but that's something that you'd have to do in your research. Are they flying low wings or high wings? Is it Piper Cherokees? Is it Cessnas? What are they? Are they Cessna 150s or 152s or 172s? Are they flying Pipers, Piper Cherokees, you know, Piper Archers? And what kind of equipment are in those aircraft? So at least you can have some rudimentary understanding of what this flight school has to offer. The other thing that's crucial is, are they legacy aircraft that they're renting? Is it one of those flight schools with the big fancy airplanes and all that kind of stuff? Do they have an accelerated program, and are you interested in that? And what does that look like? That's all the stuff that you want to understand about all the flight schools. So then that way, at least when you go in, because you're going to go to all of them that are close to you, you have the understanding of what questions you need to ask. Sure, you won't understand all of the things that they are talking about, but at least you'll have some opportunity to take notes so that you can then take things home and digest it later. The other thing you can ask them is, what does it take to, register and all that kind of stuff? And what do you need? I can tell you they're going to be looking for a driver's license, a passport, because they want to make sure that you're a United States citizen. They're going to make sure that you're over the age of 16, 18, 16, 18. Dang, I should know this, but let's just put it this way. A teenager of some variety. And those types of things. So, and of course your money. But that's all the things that I want you to really do. I want you to understand all the flight schools that are around you, and then I want you to visit those flight schools. And the one thing I really want you to do is I want you to talk to the chief pilot of every flight school that you go to. The chief pilot is the person who is responsible for all of the all the student pilots, all of the flight instructors underneath she or he at the flight school. The reason why you want to talk to the chief instructor is because they set the tone for the flight school. So you can get a feel for what's going on at a flight school by talking to the person who manages the flight school and all of the instructors. So definitely have a conversation with them. And then based on that, take all that information home and then begin to analyze what makes sense. And then the other aspects that you can add to that analysis is travel time to get there, of course, cost, those types of things. Because one of the things that you want to understand about getting a flight instructor, you're gonna be spending a lot of time and a lot of money with this person. And so it's gotta be a fit. It's gotta be somebody you're comfortable with. Me, I know at Doylestown, there are various types of personalities in terms of the instructors that they have. And some of them, all of them are great instructors, but I know for me being type A and, and hyper in people's faces and a raging extrovert and all that kind of stuff, that's not gonna work for somebody who's more quiet. And somebody who's more quiet is definitely not gonna work for me. So that's why you wanna get a feel for all of that. So that fit for an instructor may be in a flight school that's a little further away. And so, yes, you want the convenience of travel, but you also want your flight instruction to be effective and efficient. Because remember, you're spending money. Every hour that propeller is spinning, the meter's running on both the airplane and for the instructor. You don't want to get in a situation where, yeah, it's convenient, but you're spending more time having to go over things because this instructor and you are just not simpatico. And it's not that you're not a good student pilot, and it's not that they're not a good instructor. It's just that the two of you don't connect in a way that makes the instruction robust so that it remains efficient and effective. Number 3, I would highly suggest that you Google aviation medical examiners and see where they are in terms of then getting your medical examination for your medical as soon as possible. Now, there's a lot of stuff swirling around this whole medical thing because there's something called basic med and all of that kind of stuff. And fortunately for me, good Lord has seen fit that, have a measure of health where, I'm not too concerned about still qualifying for a class 3 medical. And for most of us, that's all we need. Now, for some of you younger folks who are watching this, yeah, you might want to get a class 1 medical because you want to go into ATP and all of that kind of stuff. And that's something, again, that you're going to have to understand. The differences between the class 1, the class 2, the class 3. I'm not going to get into that here, but that's something that you need to understand. But really what I am talking about in this third suggestion is understanding where you are medically. Are you on medications? What do those medications look like? And you might even want to take the basic med information and go to your primary care physician and have a conversation about, okay, I'm really thinking about becoming a pilot. I want to go into flight school, but here are some things that are coming up in terms of, medications that may be barriers to access to becoming a student pilot. Now, again, this topic of, getting a medical is huge. And it really depends on each individual set of circumstances. For instance, if you're a person who's, needs glasses, well, that's a situation that needs to be navigated. Are you on blood pressure medication? That's something that needs to be navigated. Is there anything where, you've got diabetes or any of these types of things where, the FAA is going to have some scrutiny? That's something that you definitely want to navigate before you engage this process. Bottom line is, what I'm suggesting for point number 3 is that you understand your individual medical landscape before you jump into anybody's airplane and spend 1 red cent. The last thing I want to have happen is you go to an airport, you're so excited. This is your flight school. You've got your flight instructor. You're ready to go. and they put you on the schedule and you're 15, 20 hours in, only to find out that you've got a medical situation that you have to navigate, and the FAA is asking some questions about, you know, your medical fitness to fly an airplane. So that's why you want to help yourself, help your flight training career by understanding your medical landscape before you engage in this process. Definitely something I strongly advise. And number 4, and last and first and foremost, after you have picked the flight school, you've got your medical and all that kind of stuff, do it! I know, simple and sophomoric, but I'm telling you, there are so many people I know, they do all of those things. They've been researching for years and they just can't get off of the mark. The gun has fired and they're still in the starting blocks. And I understand. It is a nerve-wracking thing to think about taking a leap to become a pilot. I got to tell you, it took me basically 2 years from the time I took my first discovery flight, which scared the death out of me, and, you know, actually went in and signed up. And there's a whole host of videos that are on this channel that go back to 2019, but there's a 2-year period, like 2017, before any of that happened, where every day I was thinking about becoming a pilot and all this kind of stuff, and I kept saying next month, well, next year, and before I knew it, 2 years had passed. And all of the stuff in my head was all about, you know, well, I don't know, I don't have the money right now, or I don't know if I have the time right now, and all that kind of stuff. And listen, I am not going to be, you know, silver spoon or Pollyanna. There are things that are probably on many of your radar screens that may be precluding you from engaging in the process. I get that. But just understand, is it a true barrier, or is it something that you're kind of thinking is a barrier and you're just not moving to just see if this is something that you can do and do now? So I just say, just do it. Just start the steps. To start thinking like you are a pilot. You are a pilot, especially if you're on a simulator. You're probably a better pilot. No, not probably. Probably are a better pilot than me. So if you're on the sim, you're already a pilot. 2, start finding the flight schools. 3, understand your medical landscape. And 4, just do it. Start engaging. Start coming out to airports. Start going over there. Do a discovery flight tomorrow. You know, really just get engaged with the whole aviation industry. And here's a bonus. I didn't say that there was 5, but the 5th thing that I would say is just kind of come out and hang out. You know, find the airport, start talking to people. You know, certainly if you run into me anywhere, I absolutely insist that you come up and say hi. And, you know, if you have any questions, you know, let me know. Listen, here's the deal. I know most people see extraordinary people doing extraordinary things as it relates to aviation. And there definitely are some. There are some people in the aviation community that are just brilliant people. And you can tell they are just super blessed in their capabilities in terms of being able to understand math and science and these concepts and all that kind of stuff. Well, guess what? That ain't me. If you talk about just normal people, yes, I'm outgoing, I'm gregarious, I'm all of those types of things. I'm just an average person as it relates to all those other things. And so, you know, I for whatever reason, you know, I managed to just, you know, push my way through this because I set it as a goal. I am telling you, and I mean this when I say this, if I can do this, so can you. It's just gonna be, how bad do you want this? Really? And so that's it. And so, listen, I know there's probably some other things I could have covered, but those are kind of the 5 things that kind of came over, the 4 most important, but the 5 things that I definitely wanted to say, that's how you kind of get started. And certainly, if you have any questions of me, definitely leave a question down in the comments. I respond to every comment that I get, and so I will try to respond. And here's the other thing that's cool. Many of the people who watch this channel are also licensed pilots. Some of them are professional pilots. They fly for pay and all that kind of stuff. They'll also see your questions and be able to answer stuff. And it may be even from a geographic sense. You know, if you say, oh, I'm out in Oklahoma, you know, I don't know of any flight schools in my area. There could be, well, somebody in your area that understands where you are and what some of your options are. So don't hesitate to leave a comment down below with your questions, because if I can't answer them, somebody probably can. Okay, so that's it. I just wanted to come on here because I really want people to engage this process, who find joy and know that this is something that they've always wanted to do. Please, ma'am, please, sir, do it. Come on, the water's fine. Come on in and be broke like the rest of us. No, seriously, I know I'm joking. Well, actually, I'm not. But, well, yeah. But at any rate, yeah, come on in. You know, like I said, you know, the aviation community needs you, and you need the aviation community. So come on, you know, don't hesitate. Especially if you've been sitting out there and you know all the barriers are really just yourself. You're just getting in your own way. So with that, I thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you got to the end, congratulations. And I am going to clean out this hangar and be expecting to hear back from the mechanics about this annual and what it costs, and all of that stuff will be on the members only section. I'm gonna break down all the costs for my 2nd annual and what they had to do and all that kind of stuff. So with that, that's it. Russ Kid, Russ Can Fly. Thank you for your support. I'm out. Peace.